Welcome to Reco12. My name is Justin, and I am a child of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a recovering addict, and I'm blessed to be the host of this meeting and podcast. Reco12 is an organization with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addiction of all kinds, and gaining and sharing tools and hope from others who are walking this path. We come together from all places, faiths, backgrounds, to gain tools and hope from others who are walking this path. Speakers from our past meetings have represented so many fellowships, addictions, and afflictions, and we look forward to continuing to add to the diversity of speakers and backgrounds. Today's speaker for the 204th meeting is Paige F, a first-timer at Reco12, and whose topic today is loneliness. And we'll get to her talk and the Q&A afterwards in just a minute, but first for a little bit of business. The Reco12 family of recovery resources continues to grow and have more resources for the addict and the loved ones of those addicted. I invite you to go and listen to and subscribe to the other Reco12 podcasts that you can find information of in the chat of the live meeting and in the show notes of the podcast if you're listening to the podcast at a later time and date. Also, we're looking at creating additional resources in more languages that I referred to before we got started here. If your native language is something other than English and you have a fire burning in you to do something like what I do in a Reco12 format, let me know. We'd love to talk about that and see if we can get something like that started in the next year. All right. If you have questions or have a desire about that, please send an email to reco12pod@gmail.com. That's reco12pod@gmail.com. And on that note, Reco12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our Step 12 in this manner. Thank you to all who have donated and continue to donate. This week, a special thanks goes out to Dory, Tess, and Julie, who joined the spearheads with recent donations. Those really help in our mission to share this message with others. If you would like to join in the ranks and become a spearhead and support Reco12 in our mission, please consider going to www.reco12.com/support and making either a one-time donation or becoming a monthly spearhead donor. We look forward to each meeting to receiving from the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. And the person who is shining bright on the screen today and sharing the message is Paige F. And here's a little bit about Paige. Paige's sobriety date is November 17th, 2009. So just passed another birthday. Awesome. Happy for you. And since then, she has fallen in love with the book Alcoholics Anonymous, the process of recovery it contains, and the solution found as the result. She has a passion and enthusiasm for helping others to recover and sharing the book. Take it away, Paige. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic, and truly I'm so grateful to be here with you guys today. And I love the introduction, and I love how you guys were talking about all the things you're doing here at Reco12, and that you guys are like big book nerds, because you're my people. I am a big book nerd. And so if anyone listening, if you guys got your book to hand, I'm going to talk about loneliness, but I'm going to do it through a format known as a big book bounce around. And if you've not ever heard that format, that's totally fair, because I made it up. It's like a foundation meeting, just with no foundation, a little unhinged. So where I'm going to kick it off, and by the way, if you don't have your book to hand, don't you worry. I'm going to read it. So I'm not going to reference anything I don't read. Don't you worry. But if you got your book to hand, let's pop over to page 1. And we're going to look at the very bottom of the first paragraph on page 1 in Bill's story. Very last sentence of the first paragraph of page 1, I was very lonely and again turned to alcohol. And see, this is Bill Wilson's experience. And see, this is the first time in the book that I'm seeing Bill Wilson treat what I come to find out is a spiritual malady, a spiritual sickness. And he's treating that intentionally with alcohol. I was very lonely and again turned to alcohol. And that was my experience. But when I came to the rooms of 12 Step, I had some misconceptions about what loneliness was and what it meant to be lonely. I thought my loneliness had everything to do with physical separation between me and another human being. And I come to find out I was wrong. In the last few years when, so much of the world was so physically disconnected, but so connected online, I felt more connected to people than ever before, and wouldn't have had the opportunity to do something incredible like this. But also, here's how I know loneliness has nothing to do with physical proximity to another human being for somebody like me. I don't know about you, but I know for me, I can be in a stadium full of other human beings and feel absolutely, utterly lonely and alone. And I don't know about you, But I can be in the middle of a room full of other people in recovery and feel absolutely, utterly lonely and alone. I don't know about you, but I know I have felt absolutely, utterly lonely and alone in the middle of a relationship. And I've felt utterly alone in the middle of an act of intimacy. And that's my experience. What I come to find out is that loneliness has nothing to do with physical proximity to another human being. And you know how I know that too? My little alcoholic brain, I'm starting to feel a little lonely, starting to feel a little alone. What is the best thing that I think I can do to cure that? Isolating. Right? That's the best solution I got, which tells me my proximity to other people is not what's wrong with me. Now we're going to take a big bounce in our big book bounce around. Let's pop over to page 151. We're kicking off the chapter of Vision for You. And don't worry, we're going to be here a little while. So it says, for most normal folks, drinking means conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. It means release from care, boredom, and worry. It is joyous intimacy with friends and a feeling that life is good. You know, I don't know about you, but when I take a drink of alcohol or I take anything, and I really do mean anything, mind altering, there's something that happens to me. I take that drink and I experience this. I experience that peace, that ease, that comfort. To misquote a part of our book, it's like a new world comes into view. My skin fits for the first time. I take a drink and I get a solution for life. That loneliness is gone. It is dissipated. I got an answer to all my problems. But then it goes on to say, but not so with us in those last days of heavy drinking. The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never could we recapture the great moments of the past. There was an insistent yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and an heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control would enable us to do it. There's always one more attempt and one more failure. What are we talking about there? See, for somebody like me, I take that drink and I get that, my shoulders fall. I am okay. My skin fits for the first time. But there's something inside of me that kicks off and it tells me more. And the more that I drink, the more that I have to drink. I've got this allergy. You know, what happens for me is I get thirstier. I kind of make the joke, that doesn't happen to me with any other beverage. My stomach stopped handling coffee, which I will say is the worst. And I do want you to feel bad about me for that. But I start my day with an Earl Grey tea. I'll be honest with you. I haven't even, I finished it. I didn't think I'd finished it. But I start my day with an Earl Grey tea. Not once in my life have I slammed back an Earl Grey tea and immediately slam back another. Not once in my life have I gone on a 3-day Earl tea bender. Not once in my life have I drank all the tea in the house, run out of the stuff. I'm opening bags of chamomile to snort them because it gotta give me something. That's never happened for me. But what happens is once I start to drink, or for somebody like me, take something mind altering, it kicks off and I need more. But the result of that lack of control, I'm not able to control the amount that I take. I burn my life to the ground. I hurt people in ways I never wanted to hurt people. I destroy my relationships and my loved ones in ways that I never wanted to do that. I cross these lines in the sand. And man, my life starts to become one that is absolutely unrecognizable to me. But I have this obsession, this mental obsession that takes me back, and I'm going to talk about that a lot more. But first and foremost, that obsession looks like, no, you know what my problem is? It's this specific drink, this specific way. If I mix it with drugs, or I drink this, or drink water in between, and all these ways that I could try to exhibit some control over this thing because it's the only thing that's ever worked. But there was always one more attempt and one more failure. And it says the less people tolerated us and the more we withdrew from society and from life itself. See, I start to isolate, I start to back away. And it says, as we became subjects of capital K, capital A, king alcohol, shivering denizens, that is what it means to be a citizen. Alcohol is the king, and I'm just this lonely, peasant, and I got no power against this thing. That's the metaphor. Shivering denizens of his mad realm. I mean, I didn't watch the last season of Game of Thrones, but if you ever watched any of the Game of Thrones, I mean, a mad king, a king that does not want the best for me, that is ruining the kingdom. That is what's happening. And it says the chilling vapor that is loneliness settled down. It thickened, ever becoming blacker. Now, how does King Alcohol become to rule my life? Well, of course, at first it's because I cannot control the amount that I take. But how it really ruins my life is I know that I can't drink safely. I know I can't take that first drink. I know that once I pick up, I lose control and I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to hurt the ones that I love, but I do it again. See, that is how King Alcohol becomes to ruin my life and rule my life. I don't want to drink, and yet I drink anyways. That is the power of this thing. And it says some of us sought out sordid places, hoping to find companionship, understanding companionship and approval. And that was my experience. And, I'm trying to cure my loneliness with people, and it does not work. It does not work. It says momentarily we did, then would come oblivion and the awful awakening to face the hideous four horsemen, terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. And happy drinkers who read this page will understand. Is that my experience? The more that I try to control this thing, the more I try to manage this thing, the more my life is being led. Heck, it's like those four horsemen, these men on horseback are dragging me. And I'm just getting beat up by terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair, and nothing's working. And then it says, now again, a serious drinker being dry at the moment says, I'm missing it all. Feel better, work better, having a better time. I'm happy to be here. I'm going to be sober. I'll take 24 and pass it on, See, that was my experience. I get sober and I get worse, but I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not okay. I don't feel okay in my skin. That loneliness from the depth of my soul begins to scream. And it says, as ex-prom drinkers, we smile at such a sally. We know that that's just a joke. In fact, it says we know that our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. And the thing about Sally, it's like a joke, but it's also me throwing everything that I can at it, throwing all my troops at this enemy, and none of it's working. Goes on to say inwardly he would give anything to take half a dozen drinks, that's 6, and get away with them. He will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. And what I want to say about that is 2 things. For me to have a step 1 experience. A step 1 experience for me was not, I can never, ever safely drink again. That's a part of it. But a step 1 experience for me was that I can never, ever safely drink again. And I will. He will presently try the old game again. I will drink again. A relapse is inevitable and is imminent for somebody of my type. And when it says, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. See, when I got here, I heard about this thing called emotional sobriety. And I thought that was for the nerds, I thought that was for those keeners with their highlighters. I got a whole bunch of highlighters. That's me, turned into me. But I didn't think that was applicable for me. I thought abstinence would be simply enough. But what I have come to realize is that emotional sobriety is not a luxury for somebody of my type. And somebody of my type is very simply somebody who has no control once I start to drink and a lack of choice. What that means is I don't want to drink, but I drink anyways. Lack of control, lack of choice. Emotional sobriety is not a luxury. And anything less than a spiritual experience, a spiritual awakening, and I will drink again. And it says, someday he will be, he cannot picture life without alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine either life either with alcohol or without it. He will then know loneliness, such as few do. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. And that is that coming to the end of myself, coming to the end of my good ideas, my little plans, and they didn't feel little. They were grand plans and designs. I come to find out they're my little plans and designs. The coming to the end of myself, my skills, my abilities, my good ideas, anything and everything that I can throw at this thing. I come to the end of myself, and I know that depth of loneliness because nothing I got is working. And I will be at that jumping off place. And only in the rooms of 12 step is that jumping off place a good place to be. It doesn't feel like a good place to be. It's coming to the end of myself. That's not pleasant. But that is the jumping off place. And that is where I begin to take that leap of faith. Now, let's pop over to page 59. And it's the first full paragraph on page 59. We're not going to be here that long, so we're bouncing around. But it says, it's first full paragraph, half measures availed us nothing, which is rude. Because I was kind of hoping I could get a little something for nothing. Like, I'm kind of hoping if I'm doing half, I should at least get something. You know what I mean? So half measures, not doing all of this, gets me drunk, gets me loaded. That is what that means. If I do not do all of this to the best of my ability, I will drink again. And it says we stood at the turning point, and this is the precipice. How do I get to this turning point? The precipice is like the edge of a cliff. How did I get there? I came to the end of my abilities, my skills, anything that I could think to throw at this thing, my willpower, my strength, my inner fortitude, my morals. Nothing is working. And then it says we ask. And anytime in this book I see the phrase we ask, there's a prayer. There's a sneaky little prayer and how it works. I love that. That's one of my favorite little fun facts. Prayer. So at this point, I ask God's protection and care with complete abandon, and I take a leap of faith. And I dive in. And what am I diving into? I'm diving into these 12 steps out of this book as a way of life. Like my life depends on it, because it does. I dive into the process of inventory, and I begin to clear and clean away the stuff inside of me that's blocking me from this power. By the way, this power that I barely like, or I don't like, I barely believe in, I don't think could possibly care about somebody like me. I got buckets of old ideas about, but I dive in and I begin to have an experience. Now let's pop over to the chapter into action, which again is kind of annoying. I was kind of hoping we'd have a chapter like into thinking about it, or into talking about it, or why don't we have a chapter into resting on our laurels? That'd be great. But let's pop over to the chapter into action, and we're going to go to page 75. And where we're going to look at the second full paragraph on page 75. And these are what are known as the step 5 promises. And it says, we pocket our pride and go to it. Going to it as in going through with that 5th step. And it says illuminating. And I love, there's a lot of metaphors for God or higher power, creator, or spirit of the universe in this book. But one of my absolute favorite metaphors is God is light. Because light is not what I see. Light is the way in which I see. I got a room over there and the lights are off. But if I were to go around the corner and turn on that light, that room would look completely different. And yet nothing has changed. And that's the same thing that happens with my life. So illuminating every twisted character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, the 5th step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. Delighted. I don't know about you. I did not think the result of the 5th step would be delighted before I took it. You know what I mean? I was looking at that 5th step on the wall or shared on the Zoom screen. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll be delighted after doing that. You know what I mean? But delighted. We can look the world in the eye. See, I don't know about you, but when I came to places like this and rooms like this, I was not looking anyone in the eye. In fact, I was intimately acquainted with the square of floor that was in front of me. I was the sort of person that would hide behind a pillar so the chairperson wouldn't call on me. They'll call on me anyways. They know what I'm doing. That was who I was. But now I can look the world in the eye. Why? Because I'm beginning to experience true humility, that I'm no better than you, that I'm no worse than you. And for somebody like me, I'm dependent upon a God, power greater than myself, true humility. And it says we can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Alone at perfect peace and ease. See, again, that loneliness has nothing to do with people around myself. It has everything to do with that connection with God. That is what loneliness and that freedom from being alone. Now, as a result of beginning to clear away some of the stuff that's inside of me that's blocking me from that power, I can be alone and I can be okay. Now, that is a powerful promise, especially if you're somebody like me who would wake up in the mornings and think, I effing hate myself. I wish I was dead. I effing hate myself. Somebody like me who would do anything to drown out those thoughts and feelings and emotions. Somebody like me who couldn't stand to be in my own skin. Now I can be alone at perfect peace and ease. That is powerful. Our fears fall from us. And the most incredible thing about my fears falling from me, that means I didn't do it. You know what I mean? I did not overcome my fears. I didn't get super brave and strong and do it. No, it fell from me. And that is the process that every single defective character that I've ever had, it falls for me. I've never overcome a single one. And yet who I am today is not who I was when I got here. And who I am today is not who I was last year, the year before, or 3 years ago. There has been a radical change in who I am. And I didn't do it. Now, don't get me wrong. I took a lot of actions and I continue to take a lot of actions. But when it falls from me, I didn't earn it. I didn't deserve it. What happened for me is I put myself in a position where I became willing and able to receive the gift. I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but I'm aware of the time. Don't you worry. And I talk about sobriety. And deeper than that, emotional sobriety is a lot like Christmas morning. And also, I want to say, if we got some, we probably do. We got some big books in the house. Some of you could be like, "Hey, Paige, you can't say this is a gift." You know what it says in the book? It says a price had to be paid. Yep, I'm with you. It says it goes to say it meant destruction of self-centeredness. The price that I'm paying to receive the gift is a part of the gift. I didn't earn it. I didn't become worthy of it. I didn't deserve it. So it's a little like Christmas morning. We're rounding the corner to that. That holiday season, which can be a little tough, but, just imagine that Christmas morning, that tree, the lights are off in the living room and the tree's just adorned and it's got the lights on it. And that's beautiful, warm, wonderful glow. And it's got the tinsel and all the decorations and it's beautiful. And then right under that Christmas tree is a gift. It's a present. And it's got the most incredible wrapping paper, perfectly. You know those people who know how to wrap a present? They're wrapping it. It's incredibly wrapped. It's got the most immaculate bow. And on that present, it's got a name tag. And on that name tag, it's got your name. And what do I got to do? Well, to get that gift, it's already there. I didn't earn it. I didn't become worthy of it. It is there. What do I have to do? I have to wake up. And then I have to go down those steps, not up those steps, down those steps, and receive the gift that's already on offer. And then it talks about we begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. See, this God is not an over there God. It is a relationship. I begin to feel the nearness of this power that is with me. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. And that's what I'm after. Nothing less than that and anything less than that. And I will drink again and I'm having it. See, it happens with action. And it says the feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. I don't have time to point to the 10th step promises, but those are powerful promises. Where I am in a position of neutrality, safe and protected, I haven't even sworn off. The problem is removed. I did not do it. I took some actions, let's be frank, I did not want to take, and the gift happens to me. We feel we are on the capital B, capital H, broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe, hand in hand. The last time we saw broad highway and spirit of the universe was step 2. Step 2, maybe you can join us. Now I'm on that highway, walking hand in hand. I'm not alone on this thing, and I'm doing it. Now, let's take another big jump. Let's pop over to the chapter, Working with Others. And we're going to read the first 2 paragraphs on page 89, Working with Others. And it kicks off saying practical experience. And you know what I love about that? Practical experience. Oh, we're in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. No worries, glad you're here. And honestly, I'll read it. So even if you don't have time to grab it, I got less than 5 left-ish. So don't worry. So it says practical experience shows. That practical experience, you know what that is? That's not some intellectual in an ivory tower telling a drunk like me what they think I should do. No, this is people who have walked through this path just like I have and saying, here is what we have done. And the reason I do this work, the reason that I've really given my life to this thing is because it works. I do not do things that do not work. I'm not out there drinking non-alcoholic alcohol, I'm not drinking it. You know what? Didn't work. I need the effect, and that's what I'm after. And it says, so our practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking. And that's what I need, immunity. Immunity from drinking as, here's something to point out, intensive work with other alcoholics, intensive. I always tell my sponsees, if you are not at least a little inconvenienced, you don't got enough sponsees. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you can't have hobbies. I'm not saying you can't windsurf or crochet. I don't have a lot of hobbies. So I don't know what hobbies are. Collect stamps. I don't know. You can have hobbies. And of course, give your time to your family. And that's stuff that is so important. But man, if I'm not a little inconvenienced, I got some more drugs to work with. There are more people to work with. And it says it works when other activities fail. And that is a theme throughout this whole thing. When nothing else is working, go help somebody else, getting me outside of myself. And it says this is our 12th suggestion. I'll point out there are suggestions, but we don't have an alternative. Well, the joke is on page 25, it does tell me what the alternative to those suggestions are, which is an alcoholic death. You know what I mean? Going on to the ends of myself and dying of this horrible illness. That's the alternative. But it is a suggestion. Won't make you do it. And it says, carry this message to other alcoholics. This message. To do this work, to be armed with facts about myself, to live in such a way where my deportment shouts that I have a real answer. This message. These 12 steps out of this book to produce a spiritual awakening, a spiritual experience. It says you can help when no one else can. I never have enough time to get to 124, but it talks about how my dark past becomes my principal asset. You know, the worst things about who I am, the worst things that I've ever done becomes gifts and blessings that I get to use to help another person. I can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they're very ill. If I'm new to this thing, if I'm in pain, if I'm struggling, it is not that I'm bad. It is not that I am immoral. It is not that I am of weak character. I am ill, and I am up against an illness over which I have no power, but we have a way out. We have a solution. If you haven't found it yet, that's okay. But I want you to know, let us help you, and it does not take long to get well. We don't have to wait to have a spiritual experience. And it says life will take on new meaning. Man, I didn't have a lot of meaning and purpose in my life when I got here. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch, and here it is, loneliness vanish. Loneliness vanish. See, I come here, I'm riddled with loneliness. It begins to alleviate in my life as I begin to work these steps, and now I get to be a part of that vanishing in the lives of others. To see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. You must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. So what I want to thank you today is thank you for the opportunity to be of service, to get outside of myself, hopefully to be of help to you, and for being the bright spot of my life. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share.
Wow, Paige, thank you for bringing the energy and the message. Such powerful share there from you. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to the Q&A here and getting a little bit deeper. We've got a few questions that have come in through the Q&A link to our live audience. If you have a question for Paige, please type it in the Q&A link at the bottom of your Zoom window. We'll get to those as we get there. I've also written a few questions here, but I'm going to start with an anonymous attendee who sent a question. This person says, how do you not push people away because of trauma or just because of whatever reason? How do you not push people away and get out of loneliness that way?
Absolutely. And, you know, so how my brain first was reading that question is like a sponsor. So I'm now realizing that's not what they were asking, but I'm going to answer that first because it's in my brain and I got to get it out. One of the most important things is to remember that they are very ill, kind of what we read. And, you know, one of the things I love is the book meets us where we're at and takes us where we need to go. And, you know, the most incredible thing is if I am armed with facts about myself, man, I know that loneliness, I know that pain, I know that trauma, I went through that, I experienced that, I went through, you know, that deep, dark secret you don't want to tell anyone. Yeah, me too, I did that too. And that's how that loneliness really vanishes when I'm sponsoring others. You know, and I get to offer that and help them. And so, yeah, if I'm struggling with trauma, if I'm struggling with that loneliness in my life, what I would say is just grab a hold of somebody who's willing to take you through the steps quickly and thoroughly through this book. And that change will happen. And that's my experience. The change happened to me. I don't have to, you know, little by slowly. There are some times where I got to force myself and I got to get uncomfortable and I got to I got to take those steps out of my comfort zone. But man, if I do this work, that stuff happens for me. There's so much in my life that I've been scared to do, not able to do, not wanting to do. I don't got to do it. I got to get me out of the way and let the God of my understanding work through me. Now, when I was newly sober, there was a friend of mine, and he would always say, Paige, everything you want in life is outside of your comfort zone. And I'm like, absolutely not. What a stupid thing that is. Absolutely not. No, you know what? I want my comfort zone. It's a little comfy and I want it. But what he did not share, and what I will share, is that every time I take that little step out of my comfort zone grows and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And so being the person who hid at the back of the room, who couldn't say any words, now showing up and chattering for probably too long, I'll be quiet. That's who I am. It grows. My comfort zone grows as I take actions outside of it. So hopefully that's helpful.
Very helpful. And another question came in that I think builds on this, and I'll ask that one here. This comes from Ashley from our live audience. Ashley says, I'm afraid of people and intimacy. I'm afraid of them. How do I let God help me break out of this isolation?
Absolutely. And what I want you to know is you're so not alone. I sponsor a lot of people. And, when we get to the resentments, it's always mom, dad, the ex. That's sort of the order. When we get to fears, here's my experience. Rejection, abandonment, intimacy, sex, they're different. Being alone, being in a relationship, success, failure. You're absolutely not alone. And so what I have found in my experience is the process of fear inventory. Fear inventory is one of those early things that I can do to help me let God's light into it. And I'll share with you I'll try to do it quickly, what my fear columns look like. And so column 1 for me is what the fear is, fear of abandonment, fear of loneliness, fear of intimacy. I'll take fear of intimacy. Column 2 is, why do I have this fear? Because the more open I am, the more squishy bits I expose, and the more you could hurt me. Maybe I've been abandoned. Maybe I've been rejected before. It's painful and it's overwhelming. My third column is, how has self-reliance failed me? So me relying on me, how has that failed me in terms of my fear of intimacy? Well, I look at it like, here's the deal. When I'm in my full-blown active alcoholism, active addiction, I am not a healthy person. And I push people away, and I have no practice with them. With intimacy. Similarly, if I'm just not practicing it, I don't get practice with it and become scarier and scarier and scarier. There's also, I push people away. I don't maybe let healthy people in my life. My value and worth get tied to what I think people think of me. I'm codependent, all that stuff. I say the prayer, God, remove my fear and direct my attention to what you'd have me be. And then I write on how reliance upon God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe, can overcome that fear. So I'm going to stay sober as the result of these 12 steps. I'm going to work them like my life depends on it. I'm going to practice intimacy and vulnerability through the process of step 4, through the process of step 5, put myself out there in 8 and 9, and, growing healthy connections, building intimacy and vulnerability with sponsees, and it happens in the deeper level for those fears is even if I am vulnerable and I am rejected and it's painful, if I rely on God, I will be okay, and I will use that experience to help others. So hopefully, as a quick go through the columns, hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, very helpful. And I'm gonna dig a little bit on one phrase that you said there and tie it with a question that I actually wrote. So you said sex and intimacy are different, and I want to dig a little bit there and have you dig into that. Many people in this call and listening are, felt members of a relationship or a process addiction, whether it be sex and love or whatever it may be. Loneliness with people like that are medicated typically through unhealthy relationships. I go in and then I get in an unhealthy place where intimacy and sex get really mixed up and cause a lot of issues. Talk to us a little bit about some healthy ways to address this, or maybe how we can differentiate and have a clear separation between sex and intimacy.
Absolutely. And the first thing that I want to say is that intimacy doesn't have to be sexual. And sort of what I was alluding to is like my relationship with my sponsees is quite intimate. There's vulnerability, there's sharing. It's not physical in any way. And there's still that intimacy. But the best way to help that I've found, or the most effective way that I've found in my life, is going through the sex. I know it's like, oh, my sponsees are sick of this too. It's like, I got a question. And I'm like, inventory. What's inventory? And so what happens is I go through the process of inventory. And so I start by writing down who that person was or what that relationship was. And I look at where I was at fault. Maybe I was grabbing a hold of them. Maybe without any discernment. I'm just gonna talk about some hypothetical inventory is what we're learning. Maybe I'm grabbing a hold of them without any sort of discernment. I dive into a relationship right away. Red flags, what are those? It's a carnival. You know what I mean? I make them my God because I've got no relationship with the God. I'm codependent. I'm enmeshed. I push other people out of my life. Maybe I'm controlling, I'm demanding. Heck, when they stop being a good God, because of course they would, they're human beings, they fall short. I go put myself into the God chair, try to fix, manage, and control. I look at where I was selfish, where I was dishonest. Now that dishonesty isn't just, things like infidelity or lying, but it's also things like not communicating, especially when it's hard. Where I was inconsiderate, where did I create jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? And then there's the prayer in the sex inventory process that I like to use, which is, God, please mold my ideals and help me to live up to them. And that I use it as a fourth column. I write on, what should I have done instead? And I dive into that. So if I was selfish, I need to be selfless. If I'm not aware of red flags, I need to use discernment. If I'm jumping into a relationship, man, I got to build trust, love, connection, and communication slowly over time. If I'm codependent as heck, I got to be God dependent as heck. How do I get there? The 12 steps is a way of life, and I dive into that, and that helps create and inform a sex idea. And then what I do, and this is something I do, it talks in the book earlier on that, like, man, moral and philosophical convictions galore. I can't live up to those galore. I can't do it. So what I do is I take that sex ideal, I turn it to prayer, and I begin to pray it on a daily basis. And that's kind of how I begin to work with it. And then if you're starting to enter in a relationship, it gives us directions, right? We ask God and sit in meditation. The right answer will come if we want it. The problem is I don't always want it.
That is very key there. The right answer will come if I want it. Well, I want to get into this relationship and get it rolling. I love that. Thank you for sharing that honestly and openly. Very good stuff. All right. I'm going to jump into the next question here from an anonymous attendee. This person, and I hear this coming from a place of frustration and hopelessness in their lives. So let's put a little hope and into this. It says, if the big book says you have to be sober to take the steps, and that we're powerless over drinking again until we have a spiritual experience, how do people hang on to get through the steps?
Yeah. And I get that, I can't wait to do the steps. I can't, here's my experience. When I sponsor my sponsees, I have not found and I'm not criticizing anyone or how they sponsor. I'm just saying what I have found in my life, in my sponsorship, meeting them once a week for an hour or so, it wasn't enough to get through the book, because I'm a line by line gal. You don't have to be a line by line person. I'm a line by line gal. And just because I found it really effective in helping people to then sponsor others. That didn't work. When I sit with my sponsees, we go through the book daily. We meet for an hour at minimum every single day. And I sit with them as they do their fourth step. I sit with them as they do their fifth step, obviously their fifth step. We do it together. I help them as they write out amends. We do it together. And so it's like that daily consistent action. It does not take long to get through the steps. And then I also work with people where it's like, we all know we're not going to make it a week sober if we don't get into action. So we very quickly do our 1, 2, 3. We can do that in a couple hours and dive into that fourth step. And again, that doesn't take long to do at all either. Often when I'm sitting with people and we're diving into resentments, we can get 1, 2, 3 done in an hour or two. Does not take long. It really doesn't. There's no need to wait, no need to delay. Dive in. And I hear you. It feels frustrating if you've been in and out, in and out, in and out. And what that means is if I've been struggling, that just means I have this illness. It's not I'm bad. It's not I'm weak. It's not at all that I don't want it enough. It is that I have this illness. So hopefully that's helpful. And yeah, we don't have to take long. We can get through it very quickly.
Hey, I'm gonna be the addict here on this and push back a little bit. I don't have an hour a day. How can I do this? I mean, and I got too much stuff going on in my life. How do I deal with that type of situation?
I hear you. So a couple of things is you do have an hour a day. You do. Of course you do. And I do know that, like, I'll work with people and they have work and it's busy and that sort of stuff. But daily is the biggest thing. But also, if I really have a deep understanding of step one, I'm going to drink again. I'm going to use again. I'm going to end up in another toxic domestic violence relationship again. I am going to die if I don't have this thing. Girl, you've got an hour. You do. I promise. How long did it take to get drunk? How long did it take to get high? Anyone ever wait for their drug dealer for longer than an hour? I don't want to just dismiss it, because I do. I know of kids and family and that sort of stuff. Man, I got a sponsee in and out of this thing for she was 25, 30 years, and she didn't understand. Man, if I'm putting recovery first, and that she's been sober coming up on 3 years, you know what I mean? If I put recovery first, and it's not that I don't have relationship with my family, it's not that I don't have hobbies, it's not that I don't do work, it's not that I don't do school, but man, this is triage. I've got to treat this thing quickly and thoroughly. Let's go. And then the maintenance stuff comes, and it's just how we live our life, and it's incredible. So hopefully that's helpful.
Love it. Yes, very helpful. Very helpful. Okay. We've got a request here that so if anybody wants to get in contact with you, Paige, are you okay if they reach out to me via email and I forward that information to you?
Absolutely. Totally.
Perfect. So if anybody wants what Paige has and wants to contact her and just talk things out in recovery, send an email to reco12pod@gmail.com, reco12pod@gmail.com. We'll get you connected. All right. Very good. Next question comes from another member of our live audience. This is from Zach.
Yeah.
Zach says, how do I know when to be, quote, hard on myself, like the big book says, and give myself tough love and push myself into recovery versus being gentle with myself and giving myself permission to be imperfect?
Oh, gosh, absolutely. And I'm sorry, my dog's here. I get that, because, when I like, it's not even when I got here, like a couple of years ago, a friend of mine said, Paige, you're the most negative, self-deprecating person that I had ever met. That's who I am. So when it comes to, like, in step 5, it says the rule is we must be hard on ourselves and always considerate of others. Man, I get that. Like, I was there and I was mean to myself and I was punitive. But in the evening review process, it talks about how, like, we must avoid drifting into, morbid reflection and that self-pity. And so it's not necessarily about, and here's what I'll offer. The program is not asking me to be perfect. The program is not asking me to do things perfectly. The program is asking that I do my best, and it's giving me the grace to make mistakes. That's what the 10th step is all about. It's not if Queen Paige descends for some reason into a little bit of resentment or dishonesty or, fear. It's when I will, and here are the actions that we take. And so, how do I not be so hard on myself? It's annoying because it wasn't like okay, I'm not going to be mean to me, or I'm going to say affirmations in the mirror. It wasn't that. It was the more that I leaned into this process and working with others, and like daily prayer, daily meditation, daily evening review, like doing this stuff daily, that I awakened to this unconditional love of God. And I saw your inherent worth. By you, I mean the people around me, you, my sponsees, your inherent value and worth. And I could not deny that the presence of God was in you, and not, despite the worst things that you've ever done either. You share with me the worst things you've ever done. Man, I love you more. And if that's how I feel, this fall down failure, a piss in my pants sort of drunk, how might God feel about me? And that was that process. And it's not a succinct, okay, say 3 affirmations in the mirror. For me, it has been about developing a relationship with God. Because when I experience God, not when I think about God, when I think about God, I can come up with a whole bunch of ideas. But when I experience God, I experience a power that is loving. And I share that with others. Man, I'm easily able to offer them grace when I'm connected. So yeah, annoyingly, step work.
Annoyingly, step work. It always seems to be the dang answer. Prayer, step work. Yeah. Let's inventory this thing.
Yeah, it's my jam. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. One of the things you said, Paige, that really hit me, and I'm going to give a little background on this. Mm-hmm. In the rooms that I frequently attend, a lot of times newcomers come in and say, I just need to overcome this and everything will be okay. whether it's their addictive practices or behaviors, whether it's a character defect of selfishness or whatever it may be. I just need to overcome that. And yet you talked about and referred to in the fifth step promises that they fall away from us. It's not about overcoming. Dive into that a little bit more and explain what that means a little bit more.
Of course. And just real quick, a little tangent before I answer the question. It's an interesting thing. I've done a little bit of work in Al-Anon, like some step work and stuff like that. And sort of my Al-Anon experience is the alcoholic gets sober and the Al-Anon gets worse. So that idea of like, I just need to overcome this. And how often have many of us put down the drink or the main sort of compulsive behavior and had a bit of that addiction whack-a-mole, you know what I mean? So that was just something that came to mind. But yeah, I'm a big believer that I'm not working on my defects of character. I'm not going to deal with my procrastination a little bit later. I'm not going to overcome this anger when everybody starts doing it the way that I think they should. I'm not going to overcome my people pleasing and my approval seeking and codependency. I mean, I will. I just need you to tell me that you like me and I'm doing a good job first. Like that's never been my experience. My experience is my job is to become willing and then ask. And for so many people, myself included, when I heard that didn't feel enough. That was like, what do you mean become willing? How do you demonstrate willingness? Well, in Bill's story, I think he's got a line that demonstrates what 6 and 7 is all about. It says, and it's right after that price had to be paid. It is, I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all. You know, we have some prayers in step 11. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. You know, when I'm showing up, how can I serve God? What would God have me be? What would God have me do? Man, it falls away. And I've had so many experiences where I didn't do it. And I remember just real quick, I remember one time this was a couple summers ago or springs ago. I was writing inventory and, I did this kind of cool thing where for every person that I resented, of course I did the 67 prayer, but I also did a loving kindness meditation for each and every one. And then I did a Ho'oponopono. I pronounced that wrong. I know I did. A Hawaiian prayer meditation for each and every one. And I remember I was doing a lot of writing. I took a break and I was listening to a spiritual book. And in that spiritual book, there's a line, and she said, you cannot say you love God if you do not love his children. Now, the crux of my inventory, or not the crux, that's not the right word for it, but the core of my inventory was judging. I think I know what you need to do and you're not doing it right. Judging. And in that moment, when I heard you cannot say you love God if you do not love his children, I felt it fall. And I've not fallen into that level of judgment ever since. I didn't do it, but I took some action that put me in a place to receive it. Hopefully, I know that's what's annoying is this is experiential. It's not intellectual. I got to do it to experience it, but hopefully that makes enough sense that we'll do it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I love I'm going to look up that Hawaiian meditation. What did you call it? Ho'oponopono?
Yeah. Ho'oponopono.
Bono? Okay. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah. And I'll have to voice to text it or voice Google it because I can't spell it.
Yeah.
O's and P's and O's and O's and N's. Yeah.
I'll look it up and I'll put a link to whatever it is in the show notes of the podcast when it goes out in case you want to look that up. Awesome. Paige, I've got one more question for you before we start wrapping this up. And this is something that I just really appreciated what you shared there. And I'd like to ask how this happened. You said early on in reading, you said, I will drink again. It's not if I get angry again. It's when anger hits me again. It's these things that, if I'm not in fit spiritual condition, these things will happen. Talk to us a little bit about how embracing that and accepting that as a fact and not just a fear has really helped you in your walk.
Oh, absolutely. And I talk about that step one experience and, like I remember it, I didn't really like come to the rooms yet. Like I'd sort of been in and around the rooms, but it was my last use. I used, and it wasn't the worst thing that ever happened. It wasn't the biggest disaster. I got loaded on what I had left and wasn't able to do some assignment for university because I was loaded. And it was that deep concession that I knew in and of myself, there was nothing that I could do to stop me from getting to where it was the worst place it had ever been. That. And so when I can kind of see reality, and that for me, that is my reality. If I don't do this, I'm gonna get loaded. It drives me, okay, so what do I got to do? Like, it's not like there's not a lot of hope in step one, but there's not meant to be. Like, I'm in trouble, and I'm in trouble like imminently. It's not good. But what that leads me to do is to be open to a solution. Because if I don't think I got this thing, listen, I got plans, I got designs, I got listen, he'll fix me. Or, like my problem is, I need like a man, all the things that I tried to put between me and the first drink of the first drug, none of them worked. But when I come to the end of myself, I'm willing to grab a hold of something that I don't like. Let's be frank. These steps are not looking appealing. At no point when I got here I was like, oh boy, I have a notebook right here. It's going to do some inventory. A fifth step, I would love to. No problem whatsoever. 9, yeah, step 9, even with my ex. Yeah, cool. No reservations, no issues. Oh God, absolutely no issues there. Prayer and meditation, I love both of those and will not fight anyone on either. Working with others, well, yes, alcoholics are so kind, patient, reasonable, unselfish, and punctual. I'd love to, you know what I mean? No, I fought all of this, and I love what is it? It's page 25, where it talks about almost none of us liked the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process required for its successful consummation. I don't have to like it. And that's coming to the end of myself. I don't have to like it. I don't have to want to do it. I can be afraid of it. I can think, man, this thing isn't going to work for me. I'm not worthy of it. I could do it with terrible motives. Controversially, I can do it with terrible motives. But if I do it and actually do it, I have found that I get well. If I don't, I don't. So yeah, that breeds action in my experience.
Love it. Thank you so much, Paige. Another thing I'll touch on here before we wrap up is one of the promises: be able to look the world in the eye. You've got fire coming out of your eyes. I love what you're doing. The light is there, and I want what you have, and so many people want what you have. Talk to us about the ability to look the world in the eye now, and how that is helpful to you and others around you.
Oh, it is incredible, because I would show up to a room thinking I was the biggest. Now, keep in mind, I like the biggest. There's some ego there. The biggest piece of garbage that ever lived. I was so unworthy, so less than you. I'd show up, this is self-centeredness, and think everyone hated me. And I would create that separation from me and you. And today, like, I kind of joke with people, but I'm quite serious. I love airports. Because for me, there's the undeniable presence of God in the airport. God's everywhere, but I got a little open to it in the airport. And at a time when, like, it's stressful, people are, overwhelmed. Man, I love being able to show up, and it's like, just show up, and it's not me, it's God working through me. And like, I'm smiling at people, like in my mind, I'm like not blessing people, but I'm like, God be with them, and the energy that changes, showing up and just being of love and service is incredible. And it's actually, in working with others, we have a sneaky cure for social anxiety, which is, of course, I got to do the steps, but it talks about, if we're going to go anywhere where there's drinking, of course, I got to be at step 12, working with others, making sure I'm spiritually fit. The key is to go and see about what I can give rather than what I can get. Looking at the world in the eye, there's that person alone in the meeting that looks uncomfortable. Nobody's talking to them. I'm gonna talk to them, and just say, hey, I'm glad you're here. It's so lovely to see you, and that was not possible for me when I got here. So that's the coolest thing. And yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much, Paige. Before we wrap up and do closing reading here, do you have any final words of wisdom for us?
Oh gosh. Yeah. What I will say is yeah, it doesn't take long to get well. It doesn't take long to have a spiritual experience. It doesn't take long to have a spiritual awakening. And I really mean that, whether I'm new, whether I've been in and out of this thing for years. I've worked with chronic relapsers. I love chronic relapsers. Or whether you've been around this thing for a while and the magic is gone. Those problems that start piling up. I don't think these steps could solve them. man, we have a solution, and it really does not take long to get well. We get to be rocketed. That means with some velocity into the fourth dimension. Bill story, it's catapulted. So no, the technology gets a little more advanced, but it does not take long. And again, what I want to say is our lives as people who have recovered, who have done this work, our lives depend on helping you. So you're definitely not a burden if you ask for help. Our lives depended on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My life depends on doing this type of stuff and working with others. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Paige. That was a great Reco12 weekly speaker meeting. And if any of you out there have any other questions, please consider joining our WhatsApp community by sending an email to reco12pod@gmail.com. I'll get you set up in there. You can ask questions, answer other questions that may come up. If you're inspired and want to share something about your insights in a 12-step type share, please consider going to Reco12 Shares SpeakPipe link. I've put that in the chat here. I'll put it in the show notes and share a little bit about what you are learning and trying to apply in your own recovery. Next week we'll be hearing from another Reco12 first timer, Melissa M., whose topic will be healing from betrayal trauma. So it's an Anon type program speaker, and we're excited about that. Love getting Anon speakers in here. Don't miss any of the other Reco12 resources that are released weekly, everything that we've got going, and come join in with us as we do these things. All right, now let's launch off into the rest of our day with Paige's favorite version of the Step 3 prayer that I was just introduced. She shared it to me. I've heard it, but I've never seen it in the big book. It's from page 215. Go ahead, Paige, take it away.
Absolutely. And 215 and near the end of the page for those that are still big book bouncing around. And it says, God, here I am, and here are all my troubles. I've made a mess of things and can't do anything about it. You take me and all my troubles and do anything you want with me. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Paige. Remember, everybody, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
I've seen stars fall from above. I've fallen in and out of love. I've been high and I've been low. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. I've seen a boy become a man. He got lost without a plan. He's so far away from home. Now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. I'm looking for the words to say. You make the world a better place, and I can call that place my home. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. So let me see just what you need to set you free, so we can be. I saw stars fall from above. I fell in and out of love. I got high and I fell low, but now I know that I just can't do this on my own. No, I just can't do this on my own. I just can't do this on my own.